The Garden Report is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Going against this front court, especially if Lively's in play here, I mean, it's a dynamic duo in there. And then you throw in Washington into that mix too, who's able to hit those corner threes there. It's a pretty daunting physical group that you're going against there. So I think you're going to need him at the very least to prevent this series from going 6-7 and being in doubt here. You're going to need some version of that Porzingis that you saw throughout the year. And he had some struggles early in that first round series as well. You almost wonder if he was starting to already decline a little bit physically before the injury there. And, you mentioned it's stretched on here. Not a ton from Joe. I think just Joe being Joe on the update stuff here. I don't really have a good sense of where it's at otherwise. But they have a lot of time going into this series, and he'll be 5.5 weeks out from the injury at that point. So to me, again, without any info here on my end, I'd be surprised if he's not ready for game one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We heard the report that he'd be ready potentially for a game 4 in Indiana. Now, the verbiage, and that was from Woj, by the way, the verbiage on the injury reporting has been bizarre. Like, had you ever heard the terminology minimum of at least several games until Kristaps Porzingis and his calf injury? I had never heard that. And to me, it seems, by the way, what does that even mean? It seems like, and I was doing Sports Center the day after that report came out. I was doing the morning show and I was writing that script, and it was like 4 a.m. We were doing the morning show. So I just copied and pasted that exact line, a minimum of several games, from the report into the script. And one of our producers was like, Drew, a minimum of several games? What does that mean? And I was like, you're right. I didn't even think about that. What does that mean? So I changed the script a little bit. And I think I just put several games, which is still pretty ambiguous. But, the reporting seemed to be that he might be ready for a game 4 if they felt like they needed him. I don't know. I have no inside intel. To me, I think I expected them to try to get him in one of those games against Indiana just to see how he responded to live game action, so you don't throw him back into the fire in the NBA Finals after over a month away. But with just how that series played out, maybe they thought, hey, look, we can finish this off without him, and it's better to get him that rest. I don't even know really what he's been doing.
So Joe went on the radio this morning and said he's been doing stuff off to the side at shoot-arounds. Hasn't participated in the shoot-arounds through this last series. And, of course, they're not practicing at this point to these finals. So I don't think he's practiced yet to this point either. But he's progressing. He's starting to do more and more out there in those individual workouts. So finally, a little something from Joe this morning. Credit to the 98.5 guys who are the only ones who seem to get him to talk.
Yeah.
But,
and we've seen that a little bit at shoot-around, right? Like he's moving around. He's doing some stuff. Scal has said, like, for the ramp-up process, you probably want to get him in some short bursts, like a 3-minute scrimmage, maybe some shooting drills, and then a couple sequences. So up and down the floor with, running the pick and pop, and then defending a pick and roll, and then, shooting on the other side and stuff like that. And the good thing is, Bobby, we got over a week to ramp up. But obviously it's different trying to simulate a live game versus actually playing in one, especially against a team like Dallas, where he's going to be asked to do a lot. And Porzingis, I think the reason he's so important in this series is not necessarily what makes him the unicorn. I don't think the 3-point shooting is his biggest role here. It's protecting the rim and disrupting that pick and roll where Lively or Gafford or Jones even are diving to the rim. And the Celtics just need a little bit extra rim protection and rebounding against a team that's really big and super active. So they're going to ask him to do a lot. Maybe it's a thing where we see him on like a minutes limit in the finals, which feels weird to say. Just like it's kind of weird to say you got to get him ramped up in the Eastern Conference Finals. But that's where we are. I'm with you, man. I think he's key for this series. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I love Cornette to death, but having Porzingis out there, whatever percent he is better than having, Luke out there in this series in particular. Again, I think there's certain matchups where Luke can excel. But this is more of a Kristaps series, especially if you want to challenge their opposing bigs with his floor stretching even, because that's another factor in having him out there is just him coming out of that pick and pop will pull guys up. So that's a benefit. And then
the Mavs are great defensively. Ever since the deadline, they've been a great defensive team. And we know how important Porzingis is to the offense.
Yeah, a lot of size. But yeah, and if he is limited, you're able to play two styles there too. Because the one thing with him out, they've been able to play a little faster. I mean, this series, the way they played with pace against Indiana, I was actually surprised they embraced the pace of that series. And they ended up being the better team, the more controlled team playing fast than Indiana was, who especially in those Boston games was just turning the ball over like crazy. So that's a benefit if you don't have them out there, I guess. But I think the size, the ability to drop back, take away the rim from some of those centers in certain possessions. And that's, I feel like that's going to be the answer if you do want to negate that pick and roll a little bit, is just to have a guy back. But at that point, you're letting Luka and Kyrie step into threes. You mentioned a little bit Dallas not being surprised that he's missed this amount of time, the several games. And then, just sort of the ramp up here for him. It's weird to me, right? Because they've been so good without him. And it felt like a lot of the explanation for why things were different this year was, you went out and got Kristaps, and here's this piece that changed everything. And then, they've played at this high level throughout the playoffs without him here. So let's say he doesn't play and they still win the championship. It's going to be weird. Like, because he was the difference maker for a lot of this year. He goes down, they're 12-2 without him. They get all these benefits the other way. So I guess that's part of the explanation there, is that the other teams have just gotten even more injured than Boston is here. But I feel like they need him. I do. And it's tough that you go out, he's this healthy all year, you rest him this much, and he's pretty much gone the whole postseason here. And there's still some question going into the finals of whether he's going to be available, because this was obviously the risk when you went out and got him, right? And the Mavs are sitting there, as you mentioned, and saying, like, now you know how it was for us on that side.
Yeah, and I would just say to anybody who thinks that we don't need Porzingis in the finals, without him, to me, the Celtics are a lot like the Thunder in this respect. Super deep, really good on both ends of the floor, good in transition, good in half court, but a little bit undersized. And think about OKC. They've got really one center in Chet Holmgren, and his weakness is his lack of girth, right? Think about the Celtics, how they're currently constructed without KP. One real center in Al Horford, and both those guys are more like fours than fives, but they play center for their team. And his weakness, quote unquote, which hasn't really impacted him mostly in these playoffs, is his age and all the tread on the tires. And if you look at how that series unfolded, Mavs Thunder, OKC's lack of size and lack of depth in the front court really hurt them, especially like we talked about against those two big guys from Dallas. So to me, I do think we need Porzingis for the finals, but you're right. It would be kind of weird, especially if you think about whom the Celtics gave up to get Porzingis. I think that would, I'm sure, like, no one's going to be upset if the Celtics win it all, but I'm sure some Celtics fans will be like, damn, like Marcus should be here. Like, it's not fair. The guy we got didn't even play. So that part of it would be kind of strange.
Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS and get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Hey, Bowie Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS.